Welcome to Girlfriend's Bible Study, a live Bible study with Connie and friends. Each week, Connie and her girlfriends engage in a lively conversation as they read and study scripture. So grab a pen, your journal, and your best friend and enjoy this enlightening Bible study.
Hello, everyone. It is time for Girlfriend's Bible Study. So, welcome to tonight's discussion. We have an interesting topic tonight. We're talking about speaking truth to power and how hard it is. You know, people talk about intervening or mediating or, even asking questions, getting clarity. And I'm going to share a personal example of once when that happened and the reaction to it. I will say it's not easy. You know, we think about speaking truth to power, even asking questions. It's not easy, but it is necessary. And there are so many biblical examples of it. So many biblical examples of it. We're going to talk about a bunch of them. And I'll start with a personal story, though. Once, when I was working at a major studio, I was a television studio, and got to buy tickets to go to the Emmys for our senior executives. And they were super expensive, and we bought a lot of them because we had a lot of award-winning programming. So we had purchased, well, based on our senior executive, who was the money guy, who told us how many, told us who could come, and based on their seniority level, they either got one ticket for them or they got a ticket for them and a guest, and it depended on how senior they were. Makes sense. So we look at the list, and by this time, I've already gone through it. So I know how many people are on the list and how many tickets it means. And I want to say we needed 99 tickets. That's the number that comes back to my memory, is we needed 99. So we're in a big meeting, and my boss, not the big guy's her boss, but my boss is there with us, and he starts going through the list to do the count, and he counts all the tickets up, and he gets to the end and he says 99, 100. And I was like, excuse me, it's actually 99, not 100. And everybody looked at me like, oh, how dare you question him and challenge it. This is the boss, this is the guy. But he counted wrong. So he looked at me and he said, okay, let me try again. So he went through, and this time I'm watching. I'm looking at my list while he's counting his, and he's counting one and then three and five and six, and goes through, and I see the mistake he makes. He counts somebody as a two that should have been counted as a one. He gets to the end and he says 99, 100. And I said, I saw what you did wrong. And by this time, my boss, she's almost apoplectic. She's like, I can't believe you're challenging him like this. And I was like, if unless so and so is supposed to have two tickets, you counted her as a two and she's supposed to be a one. So check your list, but my list has her as a one. Is it her and a guest? And he looked and he said, no, she's not supposed to have a guest. So he went back through and he got to the end and said 98, 99. Thank you, Connie, for pointing that out. And I mean, my boss, all the blood had drained from her face and all this. She was just, it was nerve-wracking. Like, it was scary because people didn't challenge him. But he's just a guy. I mean, he's a great guy. I love him. He's my mentor now. But he was a guy, and he just so happened to count wrong. And these tickets, when I tell you, and this was back in the day. So this is 30 years ago, and tickets were like, I don't know, between $600 and $800 each. So when you start counting, and you're one off, that's a chunk of money. Anyway, afterwards, my boss was like, I can't believe you challenged him like that. And like, he counted wrong. Like, I mean, I wasn't trying to be disrespectful, but he counted wrong. So in that moment, I sort of realized that some of the things that made other people scared, it wasn't easy to tell him he was wrong, but I also felt responsible. Like, if I knew in the meeting that he was wrong and I didn't say anything, and then we purchased it and we had an extra ticket, and I knew, like, there's accountability there. So um I think that was the beginning of my journey in terms of talking to different people at senior levels and being able to just talk to them like they're humans, like they put their pants on one leg at a time, just like I do. And I think that that has helped shaped my career as well. Now, I will still say it's not easy. It's not easy. I was just telling my sister who's on the call with us, hi sister. I was telling her there's this one meme that says, I'm sure somebody else will do something, said 30 billion people or whatever it is, right? Because we see stuff starting to go wrong and don't nobody want to speak truth to power. Everybody is terrified. They're shaking in their boots. They don't want to do it. And yet we need to. We need to. And even at our own risk, which we're going to read about in just a second. And also, as hard as it is to do it, if we don't do it and we assume somebody else will, and then nobody does, but we saw it and we could have said something, to me, that's almost like doubly. Like it's one thing if we didn't know, we didn't stop and think and all of that. It's another thing if we saw and then we said, I'm sure somebody else is going to say something. And my sister and I, we talk about that a lot too. We'll come up with an idea and she's like, I'm sure somebody already thought of this. Sometimes either no one's thought of it or maybe somebody did think of it, but they figured somebody else would and do it. So still nobody did it, even if somebody else thought of it. So I just want to mention those things when you're making decisions about talking to people, whether that is speaking truth to power by, challenging them if they get something wrong, or as we'll read about getting clarity on something like with, even with that gentleman, I could have been wrong. It could have been that that person was supposed to be a two, but I counted them as a one. But I asked, I got clarity. Sometimes we have to get clarity, and it feels like just asking for clarity is scary or a confrontation, but it's okay to ask for clarity. It's okay. The Bible shows us that too. And then interceding for people who are who we don't want to see something bad happen to, interceding, intervening. It's not easy, but it's important. We're going to start with a few scriptures of Esther. So I have a few females we're going to read about tonight, and I have a few males we're going to read about. So we're going to start with Esther chapter 4. Esther chapter 4. Let's see if I can get to it. Because I have a few scriptures, so I want to get them all together. There we go. Esther 4. We're going to start at verse 9 and read through 17. So this is when her uncle Mordecai is telling her, you're in a position to intervene. I need you to do it. And she's like, So, verse 9 in chapter 4 of Esther. Hathach went back and reported to Esther what Mordecai had said. Then she instructed him to say to Mordecai, all the king's officials and the people of the royal provinces know that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law, that he be put to death. The only exception to this is for the king to extend the gold scepter to him and spare his life. But 30 days have passed since I was called to go to the king. When Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, he sent back this answer. Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to royal position for such a time as this. Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai. Go, gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maids will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went away and carried out all of Esther's instructions. That was Esther 4 9 through 17. So what she did was ask him to come to dinner. So We're going to read 5, 1 through 8, and 7, 1 through 6. So she asked him to dinner the first time, and then she asked him to dinner a second time. We're going to look at it. Chapter 5, 1 through 8. On the third day after the fasting, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the palace in front of the king's hall. You know her knees were knocking. The king was sitting on his royal throne in the hall, facing the entrance. When he saw Queen Esther standing in the court, he was pleased with her and held out to her the gold scepter that was in his hand. So Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. Then the king asked, "What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be given to you." "If it pleases the king," replied Esther, "let the king, together with Haman, come today to a banquet I have prepared for him." "Bring Haman at once," the king said, "so that we may do what Esther asks." So the king and Haman went to the banquet Esther had prepared. As they were drinking wine, the king again asked Esther, "Now what is your petition? It will be given you. And what is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be granted." Esther replied, "My petition," she's shaking again, truth to power. "My petition and my request is this." Deep breath, deep breath, deep breath, and I can't do it tonight. "If the king regards me with favor, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition and fulfill my request, let the king and Haman come tomorrow to the banquet I will prepare for them. Then I will answer the king's question." She still couldn't get it out. She's trying to get her nerve up. I'm not mad at her. I can only imagine how scary it is. So now we get to chapter 7, verses 1 through 6. They go for dinner the next night. So the king and Haman went to dine with Queen Esther. And as they were drinking wine on that second day, the king again asked, "Queen Esther, what is your petition? It will be given you. What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be granted." Then Queen Esther answered, "If I have found favor with you, O king, and if it pleases your majesty, grant me my life. This is my petition. And spare my people. This is my request. For I and my people have been sold for destruction and slaughter and annihilation. If we had merely been sold as male and female slaves, I would have kept quiet because no such distress would justify disturbing the king." King Xerxes asked Queen Esther, "Who is he? Where is the man who has dared to do such a thing?" Esther said, "The adversary and enemy is this vile Haman." It couldn't have been easy, y'all. It's not easy to do this, to come before the king knowing you could lose your very life. And now you got to point out his number one advisor and say, this man is vile and evil. And you got to do it. You got to speak that truth to power. I'm sure it was scary. I'm sure it was scary. We're going to take another look at another scripture. We're alternating between our men and our women tonight. So go to Judges chapter 6. We're going to just read a few verses out of Judges. This is Gideon. In this situation, one of the things I said was even asking for clarity or saying, "Lord, I want to make sure I heard you." You're talking to the Lord, right? Are you sure I'm the one you want? Is this seriously? Can we just So Judges 6, we're going to read 36 through 40. Gideon said to God, "If you will save Israel by my hand as you have promised, look, I will place a wool fleece on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the fleece and all the ground is dry, then I will know that you will save Israel by my hand as you said." And that is what happened. Gideon rose early the next day. He squeezed the fleece and wrung out the dew, a bowl full of water. Then Gideon said to God, "Do not be angry with me. Let me make just one more request. Allow me one more test with the fleece. This time make the fleece dry and the ground covered with dew." That night, God did so. Only the fleece was dry. All the ground was covered with dew. Again, this is Gideon talking to God, scared. It says that earlier in the scripture when he realizes he's in the presence of God, he's like, I'm going to die. I done seen the face of God. I'm out. And he's like, no, 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 you will not die. God gave him an instruction. And he's like, I'm going to need some clarity and confirmation. God is okay with us asking that. Speaking truth to power may mean getting clarity. It may mean getting a confirmation. That's an okay thing. Now we're going to look in Matthew chapter 15. Matthew 15. This is a lady talking to Jesus. We're looking at verse 21. Leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him crying out, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is suffering terribly from demon possession. Jesus did not answer a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, Send her away, for she keeps crying out after us. He answered, I was only sent to the lost sheep of Israel. The woman came and knelt before him. Lord, help me, she said. He replied, It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs. Yes, Lord, she said, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. She was not giving up on her baby, y'all. Then Jesus answered, Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted. And her daughter was healed from that very hour. Again, you got to know this couldn't have been easy to challenge. Jesus had said, No, I'm not. I won't help you. It's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs. I was only sent to the lost sheep of Israel. Done. I said what I said and I'm done. Could have happened that way. She pressed in, she pressed on. She's speaking to power and she's still asking for clarity. She's asking for help and she did not back down, even though I can only imagine it was scary. Now we're going to 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel 12. So David had done the badness with Bathsheba, had her husband killed, and God sends Nathan to him. It can't be easy. David is the king. Yes, Nathan is a prophet. He's sent by God, and that's the key, right? Be sent by God. Know who's sending you before you go up and do something. Have your ducks in a row. Know who your source is. But he's still going before the king. So, 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 1. The Lord sent Nathan to David. When he came to him, he said, and he had to come up with a whole story, y'all. He had to figure this out. My job today is to speak truth to power in a way that they can understand and apply to themselves. You better be anointed to be able to do this. You better know what you're doing. So he said to him, There were two men in a certain town, one rich and the other poor. The rich man had a very large number of sheep and cattle, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb he had bought. He raised it, and it grew up with him and his children. It shared his food, drank from his cup, and even slept in his arms. It was like a daughter to him. Now a traveler came to the rich man, but the rich man refrained from taking one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal for the traveler who had come to him. Instead, he took the ewe lamb that belonged to the poor man and prepared it for the one who had come to him. David burned with anger against the man and said to Nathan, As surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this deserves to die. He must pay for that lamb 4 times over because he did such a thing and had no pity. Then Nathan said to David, Truth to power, y'all. You are the man. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I anointed you king over Israel, and I delivered you from the hand of Saul. I gave your master's house to you, and your master's wives into your arms. I gave you the house of Israel and Judah. And if all this had been too little, I would have given you even more. Why did you despise the word of the Lord by doing what is evil in his eyes? You struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword and took his wife to be your own. You killed him with the sword of the Ammonites. Now, therefore, the sword will never depart from your house because you despised me and took the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your own. This is what the Lord says. Out of your own household, I am going to bring calamity upon you. Before your very eyes, I will take your wives and give them to one who is close to you, and he will lie with your wives in broad daylight. You did it in secret, but I will do this thing in broad daylight before all Israel. Then David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. Nathan replied, the Lord has taken away your sin. You are not going to die. But because by doing this you have made the enemies of the Lord show utter contempt, the son born to you will die. It's a hard one. I can't imagine. I can't imagine having to say that to the king. I can't imagine. It can't be easy. There are multiple times like that in scripture. I'm going to read, I'm going to reference one. Um, they're both short. I'll read these two. Genesis chapter 18. This is about Sodom and Gomorrah. Abraham's walking with God, and in verse 22, God has already decided I'm destroying Sodom and Gomorrah. The sin has reached my I can't is can't. And so in verse 22, the men turned away and went towards Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. This is Genesis 18:22. Verse 23. Then Abraham approached him and said, will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do right? And then if you read all the way through 33, it was a negotiation. The Lord said, if I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake. And then Abraham spoke up again. Now that I've been so bold as to speak to the Lord, speak truth to power, ask the questions, get the clarity, though I am nothing but dust and ashes. What if the number of the righteous is 5 less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city because of 5 people? If I find 45 there, he said, I will not destroy it. Once again, he spoke to him. What if only 40 are found there? He said, for the sake of 40, I will not do it. Then he said, may the Lord not be angry, but let me speak. What if only 30 can be found there? He answered, I will not do it if I find 30 there. Abraham said, now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, what if only 20 can be found there? He said, for the sake of 20, I will not destroy it. Then he said, may the Lord not be angry, but let me speak just once more. What if only 10 can be found there? He answered, for the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. When the Lord had finished speaking with Abraham, he left, and Abraham returned home. Again, it doesn't mean it's easy, y'all. It's not necessarily easy to speak truth to power, to ask questions, get clarity. It's not easy, but it's necessary. The last one I'm going to read, and then I'll talk about a final one, is in 1 Samuel 25. This is, as many people know, one of my favorite scriptures. This is about Nabal, David, Abigail. Nabal is a fool and his name means fool. That's what we know about Nabal. So Abigail and Nabal are married. David's coming through. He asked for a favor. We didn't mess with any of your stuff or take any of your things. Can you just give us a little safe harbor here, give us some food and whatnot? He's like, but you, we didn't ask you to help us protect nothing. Get on. You whatever, whatever. And they came back and David was like, strap up, boys. We about to tear it all down. Because David was a warrior, first and foremost. And then Abigail heard what her foolish husband had done, and we pick it up in 1 Samuel 25, verse 23. So Abigail has prepared all this stuff. She rides out there. And then 23 says, when Abigail saw David, she quickly got off her donkey and bowed down before David with her face to the ground. She fell at his feet and said, my Lord, let the blame be on me alone. Look at her taking accountability. Please let your servant speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say. May my Lord pay no attention to that wicked man Nabal. He is just like his name. His name is fool, and folly goes with him. But as for me, your servant, I did not see the men my master sent. Now, since the Lord has kept you, my master, from bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hands, as surely as the Lord lives and as you live, may your enemies and all who intend to harm my master be like Nabal. And let this gift which your servant has brought to my master be given to the men who follow you. Please forgive your servant's offense, for the Lord will certainly make a lasting dynasty for my master because he fights the Lord's battles. Let no wrongdoing be found in you as long as you live. Even though someone is pursuing you to take your life, the life of my master will be bound securely in the bundle of the living by the Lord your God. But the lives of your enemies, he will hurl away as from the pocket of a sling. When the Lord has done for my master every good thing he promised concerning him, and has appointed him leader over Israel, my master will not have on his conscience the staggering burden of needless bloodshed or of having avenged himself. And when the Lord has brought my master success, remember your servant. And he did. He had mercy on her. He was like, okay, I, I'm glad you came out. I'm glad you said what you did. You literally just saved your whole situation here. That's basically what he said. But it couldn't have been easy, but it was right. It was the right thing to do. The last scripture that I was going to read, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, I'm not going to read any of it, but I do want you to read it yourself, and maybe I'll pick it up next week, is Daniel chapter 2, when he has to interpret King Nebuchadnezzar's dream. And maybe we'll do that next week. The dreams, we'll do the Joseph one and the Daniel one, but you have a dream or somebody has a dream and you got to tell them what that dream means, and you get the gift, you have the gift from God to be able to interpret it, and you know the interpretation comes from God. But imagine having to tell the king, yeah, see, things are about to get bad for you. That's what I'm trying to say. Speaking truth to power, y'all, is not always easy. In fact, it's almost never easy, but it is necessary. Whether it's getting clarity, whether it's mediating between two parties, as Abigail did with Nabal and David, or it's interceding for, the Sodom and Gomorrites, of saying, if there are 10, please don't do this thing. Being able to say to power, I need to tell you a truth. I need to ask you a thing. I need to get clarity is important. It's important, but it's not easy. It wasn't easy for Esther, for the lady who wanted the crumbs. It wasn't easy for Gideon, for Nathan with David, with Abraham, or with Abigail. It's not easy, but it is necessary. But you got to know who's sending you. Make sure you check in with God. You don't want to be just talking out the side of your mouth. We just say that because that doesn't work so well. And on that note, I will bring my beautiful sisters on screen, I believe. Hello, sister. Hello, sister in the car.
Hey there.
Hi, honey bunny. Do you have anything you
You
want to
see, we
share
still
about
got a little
tonight's
bit of
lesson?
blue sky here.
I see. Ours is dark. Ours is
What I
dark.
had to share, well, really, what made me think about was how difficult. I had never really thought about. Well, I wondered why Rachel like waited till the next day. She's like I knew she needed to get her whole thing together now, but I wonder why she didn't just ask him. I didn't think about the fact that she was so scared, to go before the king. I mean, she knew the repercussions when she said anything in the first place. And I always wonder, well, why did she wait till the next day? Like she trying to get her dance together? What what's going on? So that's that. And then with Nathan, it seemed like he didn't have any fear. But I mean, my goodness, he was not only telling the king he was wrong, but he told him, ain't your child gonna die. And he
It
didn't seem to
couldn't
be
have been
scared though, because
easy.
I guess he knew that he was a true prophet, and he had been for a
Hmm.
long time. So he didn't seem to have that same fear in that, because you would think that the king, if David was evil, he could just strike him down. Like, any king could just have people killed because they don't like what they're saying. Um, so yeah, I hadn't really taken a look like that, but yeah, that's the importance of, speaking truth to power, but even just doing what God is telling you to do when you know that it's God, and it's difficult. And I've had that happen several times where God told me to, and I can't. I don't. A lot of times I don't like when some people say, "Oh, God told me to tell you about." Well, He hasn't told me that. I haven't. I have no inkling that this is coming from you. So I'm going to need Him to speak to my spirit to even receive what you're saying. And if somebody said that to me, I would be even more cautious. But the times that he's had me to absolutely say something to people, and I didn't want to do it, especially one thing that was like, no, Lord, I know I'm not the one to do no. And as soon as I started speaking, they're like, who are you talking to? I'm like, nobody. I just felt like I needed to share this. Not, I felt like the Lord told me to share this with you. I don't know why. Like, I don't know what you're doing in your job or in your career, or in your business. I don't know why he's telling me to tell you this. And then they will just break down with, oh my goodness, I've been making bad choices. I've been putting this before God. And he said, don't put anything before me. So, you know, um, yeah, but that was a very, very scary time for me when that has happened. It's been,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's gotten any easier. Seriously.
No. No. I mean, I know this part of doing this is my actual job. And there are still times when I get ready to go before whatever the room is to be able to say, okay, I'm gonna have to, or I get on that Zoom call and I'm like, I'm gonna have to tell them this is what I've observed. It doesn't make it, even doing it regularly doesn't mean it's easy.
Yeah,
Nathan, we may not have seen his knees knocking or doing whatever, but it
right.
couldn't have been easy to say that. And we see that later with Elijah, where Elijah, he has to go tell somebody something. He's like, they're gonna kill me. Like he just says
Right.
it. Like, I wanna
Yeah.
go. They're gonna kill me. God's like, they're not gonna kill you. I need you to
Mhm.
go. And he was similar. I don't know if he was as old as Nathan at that time, but he was certainly respected like Nathan at that point.
Yeah.
And still, knowing I know God is telling me to do this, I don't want to do it.
Right.
I don't want to do it.
Yep.
It's not easy. Hey, sister.
So let me just say, Gideon is my dude. Gideon is my dude. Can I just say, taking the scientific method to God? Okay, I'm gonna try this experiment. Okay, all right, it worked this way this time. Let me do double blind. Let me do let me do try it again. Okay. All right, it worked. Okay, but wait. So God, see, could you? I mean, I know, and I'm just, I'm on my hands and knees, and but I'm gonna ask because I need to know that I know that I know. I love him. I love him because He's not doubting Thomas exactly. He's just okay, but I don't trust that. I just need to know. I don't want to mess this up. I don't. And that also ties into me with people who will come to you and say, God told me to tell you this. I just, that's it. And you
Yeah.
can, to me, there's a much better chance that is really from God when it's not something that they fervently believe themselves. Like Joyce Meyer talked about how a woman came up to her and said, God just told me to tell you that you wear your blouses too low cut. And you're not approved, right? Like you don't have an opinion on this, right? You don't have a certain opinion about how women should wear their, you know what I mean? So like, Spring talking about how I don't know where this came from. I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't understand the context. To me, that has a much better chance of really being God speaking through you rather than, that thing you're doing over there that I've been noticing you doing for a long time that I don't think is right. God told me to tell you this. No.
Right. Yeah.
So, but to me that was Gideon. Gideon was like, let me just make sure it's not me. It's not, none of this is me. I'm gonna, test and test, test, test. But yeah,
Right.
we're not gonna come to God on that third. But he
Right.
did. He's like, here's what I need to do it. So, and absolutely, I think Esther was like, so let's do this again tomorrow.
Exactly. She had to be terrified. Like now she's watching, dinner's over, they clean their plate, they're on their lounge and wine, and she's like, and now I'm supposed to say this. Um, how about dinner again tomorrow? Like you can only, I know, I know how I would feel.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah, she
yeah,
probably and had to rehearse and rehearse, and we are human vessels. Whatever we have to do to carry out what we know, what we've confirmed we've been asked to do. Fortunately, we have that grace and that leeway. God's like, she's not ready. Okay, all right, she'll tell them.
right. I'm gonna have to give her some more signs. I'm gonna have to bolster her with some additional whatever, whatever. Yeah, yeah. It's serious. So yeah, but it's necessary. And we have human like these. Some of these people were talking to God. The lady with the crumbs, she was talking to Jesus. Abraham was talking to God himself. And we think of these people. You just muted yourself, sister.
I was just saying, yeah, my boy Gideon talking directly to God.
Talking to God.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, they're
Thanks for the
babies that were
miracle.
talking to God.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I mean, it's bad enough. Esther's talking to a king, Nathan's talking to a king, Abigail's talking to a king apparent, heir apparent to the kingdom. Daniel, we'll talk about next week, was talking to a king. That's already the highest in the land. That's got to be terrifying. They have, like you said, they have the power to just, that's it. If David had been evil, he could have just whipped out a sword and put it into that. How dare you speak to me in this manner? And that could have been that. And yet, as Esther said, if I perish, I perish.
Exactly. I mean, the term killing the messenger didn't come from nowhere.
That's right.
Evil kings, you don't bring them no bad news.
Yep. Yep. So we still have to do it. As hard
And,
as it is, we still have to do it.
and as Esther said, if I perish, I perish. How much scarier? What can God do to you? A king can take your life. You don't want to piss God off and have your whole eternity ruined, right? Like that's not.
Right? Yeah. Imagine if Abraham had been like, but wait, if there's 45, did you just question that? Like that could have been it. But praise God that wasn't it. Jesus,
It,
it could have gone a whole different direction.
it could have, but in my head, I imagined God with a half smile on his face, with like, I know exactly how many there are. Keep going. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. I know.
I
I
know the
know.
number. You keep going. Yeah. Mhm.
And must have been also paternal pride to see the compassion that his child Abraham had. He was about to make him the father of many nations,
Mhm.
and seeing that he cares for everybody. If you read earlier in that chapter, that was Genesis 18. God is talking to the angels that are with him, and he's like, should we tell Abraham what we're about to do? Because I've told him he's going to have, as numerous as the sand on the seashore. Like, should we let him know that we're about to, half the sand in this area is going to be good? Like, you know what I mean? Like, should we tell him? And they made the decision that, yes, we should let him know that we're about to destroy this whole thing. Because I'm sure it was a test for Abraham too. I've told you I'm going to bless you with this. And if I say, but this section right here, I got to go ahead and destroy that. You're like, do it, because I don't want any bad seeds in my kingdom. The people he didn't do that. So I'm sure, I mean, God, everything God does is with purpose. So I'm sure it was in some form or fashion a test for Abraham too. And like you said, he knew ain't nobody down there any good. But go ahead. 45, sure. Okay. 30, okay. Yep. 30, 20, absolutely. 10, yep,
Gotcha.
sure. We'll save it for 10. And like you said, he knew. He knew. Anyway. All righty, sisters. Well, thank you for being with me tonight for tonight's lesson. We'll do part 2 of Speaking Truth to Power next week. But do it when you're supposed to. That's what I'm going to say. Do it when you're supposed to. You got to be brave enough to do it. And Spring, stay safe out there on the road. I love you, sister.
Love you too.
I love you so much. And I will talk to you later, Facebook.
Bye, Facebook.
Hi, Facebook.